By the end of this video, you will know how to display a simple list of a small number of items using the list view. And then you will also learn how to display a long list of items with the help of list view, but this time creating the list view with the help of the constructor called builder. And then you will learn how to use the constructor separated to create a list with separators or dividers in between the items of the list. And then I'll quickly show you how to create a horizontal list. And finally, I'll show you how to create the layouts for the individual items of the list easily with help of the widget called ListTile. So I have already created a new Flutter project and this is the default code. Now I'll remove this widget, my homepage, of this default code because we are going to create our own, and I'll keep this main function as we need it, and I'll also keep this map widget because we will need this too. I'll only remove this my homepage widget and create our own, and we'll still pass an instance of our homepage to this property home. So let's remove this. Now create a new file inside the lib folder and let's name it simple_list. Inside this file, create a new stateless widget for the home page. Let's name it simple list. We have to import the material.dart library to be able to access these classes, and as we have not imported it yet, we have these errors. So let's take the cursor to one of the missing classes, hit Alt Enter, and from the pop-up select the option to import the package material.dart. Now return a scaffold from this build function of the new widget simple list because we shall create a page that looks like a material design page, and add an app bar too if you wish. Now add an instance of the widget called ListView to the body of the scaffold. In this list we are going to display a small number of items. So we are going to create an instance of the ListView widget using the default constructor itself. Now this ListView has a property children that takes a list of widgets. So we are going to add 3 text widgets to this list. Let's also add some text. To the first one, I shall pass this is a simple list. To the second one, we shall make this clickable, and on clicking this second text, we shall load a new screen where we shall display a list of a large number of items. So let us pass click to view a long list here. And to the third text widget, we shall pass the text click to view a list with separators because we shall make this clickable, and on clicking this third item we shall load another screen, and there we shall display a list with separators in between the list items. Now to make these text widgets clickable, we shall wrap them with the widget called gesture detector because text widgets are not clickable by default. When we wrap it with the gesture detector widget, then we can implement the function on tap of the gesture detector widget, which will be called when this is tapped, and there we can write the code that we want to execute when this item is clicked. Let us also add some padding around the text widgets by wrapping these text widgets with a padding widget. So take the cursor to the name of the widget, hit Alt Enter and select wrap with padding. And let's go with the default padding, and let us do the same for the other text widgets too. Now let's go back to the main.dart file, and here inside the my app widget, inside the material app of the build function, let's pass an instance of our home page, the widget simple list, to the property home, and save and run the app. And now we can see a simple list of 3 text items. This approach is perfect when we have a small number of items to be displayed on the list. But when we have a large number of items to be displayed on a list, using this default constructor is not at all a good idea. Because in this case, the layouts are created for all the items of the list, regardless of whether the items are currently visible on the screen or not. So for example, there may be 100 items in the list, but currently we may have space for only 10 items on the screen. We can only display 10 items on the page. So in that case too, using this default constructor will create the layouts for all the 100 items of the list. So that is a wastage of resource. It will have negative impact on the performance of the app. So there is a better approach for displaying a list of large number of items, and that is with help of the builder constructor. In that case, the layouts are created initially only for the items that are currently visible on the screen, and as we keep on scrolling, the layouts are created on demand. So let me show you how to use the builder constructor to create a list view. First, create a new file inside this list folder. Let's name it long_list.dart, and inside create a new stateless widget. Type stles and hit Ctrl space and select the option to create a stateless widget. Then enter the name for the widget. Let's name it long list. We have some errors here as these classes belong to the package material.dart and we have not yet imported it, so import the package material.dart now. Take the cursor to one of these missing classes and hit Alt Enter, select material.dart from the pop-up. Now load this widget on clicking the second item of the list of the simple list widget. So open the file simple_list.dart. Call navigator.off and pass the context and call push on the result. We have to create a route for the widget to load and pass it to this function push. So create an instance of the material page route, pass an implementation of the builder function to the property builder of material page route. This function is called by the framework and an instance of the context is passed while calling it. So add a parameter of type build context, and the widget we want to load as the new screen has to be returned from this builder function. So let's return an instance of the newly created widget long list. Now save the changes and try clicking on this item on the list. Now we can see a blank screen of the widget long list. Now let's go back to the file long_list and try to display a long list of items. First, create a long list of dummy content. And for that we are going to use the function generate of the class list. We have to pass two parameters. First one is the number of items that we want this list to have, and the second is a function using which we can define the items of the list. In this case, we are going to create a list of strings, so we have to return a string from this function. So this function will be called once for each of the items, and whatever we return from this function will be inserted to the corresponding index of that list. So here we can return a string, and this function, when it is called, it gets an argument of type integer which corresponds to the index of the list, and we can use this variable inside this string. Now return a scaffold from this build function. Also add an app bar. Add a list view to the body of the scaffold, but this time create the instance of the list view using the builder constructor instead of the default one. There are two important parameters of this constructor. First is item count. Pass the number of items on the list to the property item count. And next, item builder. Implement this item builder function to create the layout for each item of the list. We have to return the widget representing the layout of an individual item of the list from this function. This function is called by the framework, and an instance of the build context and an index corresponding to an item of our list will be passed to it. This will be called item count times, and the index passed to it is greater than equal to 0 and less than item count. So let's return a text widget and pass a string of our list by index while creating an instance of this text widget. Now save this and load the long list widget by tapping the corresponding item on the list on the home page. Now we can see the list of 20 strings. Each of the items has the corresponding index printed. So here we have indexes from 0 to 19, as the item count in our case is 20. Now you can create a custom layout for the list items by composing different widgets and returning from this builder function. Let me display 2 lines of text for each item. So wrap this text by a column and add another text widget to the list children of the column. Pass cross-axis alignment.start to the property cross-axis alignment of the column to align this towards the left, towards the start. Wrap the column with a padding widget to add some padding around it. We can also wrap the whole thing with a gesture detector and implement the onTap callback function to make it clickable, make the items clickable. Now save the changes and load the long list by clicking the second item of the list of the home screen. Now our list item looks a little better with the new layout, but there is an easier way to achieve this. Flutter provides a widget called ListTile, using which we can easily create the common type of layouts for list items. And I shall show you how to use ListTile, but before that let us try to make this list horizontal. And also let us try to create a list with separators in between the list items. Making a list horizontal is extremely easy. The ListView widget has a property called scroll direction, and we have to pass axis.horizontal to this property. So pass axis.horizontal to scroll direction, save the changes, and notice that our list is horizontal now. Now let's create a list with separators between the items, and this will be almost the same as what we have done here inside the file longlist.dart. So I'll simply copy this file longlist.dart and paste it once inside the lib folder. Let's call this new file longlist with separator and rename the widget to longlist with separator. Right click on the name of the class and click on refactor, then rename, and type the new name. This time inside the builder function, while adding the list view to the body of the scaffold, create the instance of the list view widget using the constructor named separated instead of builder. Now you will immediately notice an error saying that the named parameter separator builder is required, but there is no corresponding argument. While creating a list view with this constructor separated, we must provide value for the property called separator builder. And this separator builder is a callback function similar to item builder. The syntax is the same as item builder function. It should have two parameters. First is a build context and the second is the index. And we have to return a widget that we want to appear between two items of the list from this function. We shall display a thin horizontal line between the items of the list, and Flutter provides a widget for that too, called divider. Let's return an instance of divider widget from this separator builder function. You can customize the look of this divider by providing values for the different relevant fields of the widget, but here I'll keep it simple as it is. Let's also remove this scroll direction because we are going to keep this list vertical itself. The last thing we have to do before we can view this list is to load it on clicking the third item of the list of the home page. So open the file simple_list.dart. Inside this onTap function of the gesture detector of the third item of the list, write the code to load the widget long list with separator with help of the navigator. Let's copy the code from the second item and change the widget being returned to long list with separator. Now run the app and we have the list with a thin horizontal line separating the items of the list from each other. Now let me show you how to create the layout for an individual item of a list using the widget ListTile of Flutter. And this too is pretty simple. Simply return an instance of the class ListTile from the item builder function. Pass a text widget to the property title for the main text of the item. Pass the corresponding string from our list of items to this text widget. Pass another text widget to the property subtitle to display a text below the main text. Save the changes and it already looks similar to what we had. There is another cool property named leading. It takes a widget and places it at the start of the horizontal axis. It is often required to display images or icons at the start, and doing this is pretty easy with this property of ListTile. Let's pass a container to the property. You can pass any widget. You can pass an image too. Let's add a height and a width to the container. Let's pass a color from the colors class. Save and notice the changes. It looks good. Now we often need to display some icons towards the end of the list item too. For example, an icon indicating more actions or an icon to indicate draggability of the item. For that too, we have a property called trailing in the ListTile widget. We can pass any widget to these properties. Now here to the trailing, let's pass an instance of the widget icon. And while creating this instance of icon, pass an icon from the icons class. Let's pass icons.edit. Now save and we have a trailing icon for each item on the list. And last but not least, we no longer need the gesture detector to make the list items clickable. ListTile already has a property called onTap for a callback function that gets executed on tapping the list tile. Save the changes and now we have a list of items with beautiful layouts. So we have learned how to use the ListView widget of Flutter to display different types of lists. We have learned that the default constructor is based for a small number of items, and to display a large number of items in a list, we should use the constructor builder. And to display separators in between the items of a list, the easiest way is to create a list view with help of the constructor separated. We have also learned that we can convert a list to a horizontally scrollable one easily with help of the property scroll direction. And We have learned that we can use the widget called ListTile to easily create a layout for the individual items of a list. Now, if you want the source code for this particular video, take a look at the description. You'll find the link. Thanks for watching.